Hello, my name is Celina. I'm a part of the Let's Discuss A Course in Miracles webinar team at the Foundation for Inner Peace. The mission of the foundation is to publish, distribute, and discuss A Course in Miracles. And we hold these Let's Discuss online webinars as an expression of our vision of extending love through A Course in Miracles teachings. Today, we're bringing you Staying Cool in the Heat of the Moment. This session is coming to you live and will be about 90 minutes in length. And we thank all who submitted questions in advance on this topic. Also, for those who are attending live with us, our question and answer feature is available today on this platform. We'll take a few questions as we have time for them, so please submit them using the Q&A button at the edge of your screen. We are also happy to announce that simultaneous Spanish translation is available today. Attendees can listen to Spanish by selecting the interpretation button in the webinar controls and selecting the Spanish channel. For those listening live, we will make sure to paste these instructions in the group chat. Before introducing our guests, I invite you to join in prayer. From the text, chapter 2, A Course in Miracles tells us that we can do much on behalf of our own healing and that of others if we think of our situations in this way. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. Now it's time for today's Let's Discuss webinar. It's summer here in the United States and all of the Northern Hemisphere. And just like the rising temperatures, the ego, in a myriad of forms, can sizzle into our awareness. The heat could easily get turned up when it comes to our personal lives, our relationships with others. We see it in our families, our workspace, our health, our finances, etc. And you don't have to look far to hear about pressing challenges being experienced on the global landscape: war and conflict, polarized politics, cost of living crisis, the impacts of climate change, to name a few. But when the issues have us coming in hot, can they also be used to heat up our own spiritual practice? As course students, instead of reacting to the cause and effect of the world has to offer, how do we effectively implement the principles of A Course in Miracles during our most fiery moments? Well, today we'll explore together how to maintain our spiritual cool amidst the fiery challenges posed by the ego. We have a great group of mighty companions who are here to help us, and so it's a true pleasure to have and welcome our panelists. I am joined today by Foundation President Tam Morgan, along with course practitioners Allan Ishac, Elizabeth Keats, and Jacqueline Boss. Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And so here we are. You heard my intro. How do you all stay cool in your fiery moments? I'm going to go ahead and give it to Tam. I'm sure she might have something to say about this and start off
I'll
the
say
conversation.
just hearing you mention all those topics were starting to agitate me a little. All the things going on in this illusory world. I'll also say that it's especially great topic for me, as I was such a perfect challenge to my mother. When she got the course, I was a teenager and I absolutely loved testing her. She would talk about the course and how peaceful it was going to make her and how she was practicing this so well. And then I'd come home and I'd be really a raving, we'll just call it crankpot, but you know the word. And I would just get at her. And I keep bugging her and I keep bugging her. And she'd finally turn around to just, oh, can you stop? And she'd start up, her arm would raise. And I go, you're not practicing the course. You're not practicing the course. And I always felt very good that I wasn't a dedicated course student. I wasn't a course student then at all. And let's fast forward 50 years later, being a course student and seeing the flip side of it, and really learning the more I get into course practice, what a true gift it is to have someone be in one's life that can agitate you so quickly. And remembering, one of my favorite lines of Ram Dass was that he was incredibly enlightened when he was in the Himalayas on a mountain. And, he'd fly home with pure oneness and his heart and being. And he said 10 minutes with his father would knock him so far off that mountain. It was incredible. So he saw his blessing was his father. And, he wanted to do that work. He saw where it was. So being in a cave without listening to the news, without doing anything, it does make the practice easier. But the blessings when we do enter this world are how can we do it within moments of stress, within moments of heat. I think it's all of our practices here. It's why many of us are drawn to the course for inner peace. And when do we choose inner peace instead of the conflict? Because I know with me, there are times where I don't want to choose inner peace at that moment. I want to, be in conflict because it feels so passionate or alive, or give it any other reason, excuse to not choose peace. And as I grow deeper and deeper into my practice, I see the value of peace, not just for myself, but especially for myself, I have to say, all around and in the relationships. And if I get agitated with what's going on in the world, it's really something that's going on with me. And I'm learning that more and more. So I will say I've spoken recently on a podcast with Allan, who is making this seem simple. And I'm just going to pass this over to you for a moment, Allan.
Well, I think that anger goes with the meat body territory, and there's not much we can do about it except to pray and to try to turn it over to spirit when it happens. Your mother Judy's told a great story on a very early Miracle Voices podcast about meeting with Gerald John Polsky on a regular basis, I think weekly. And somebody interrupted them in the middle of their chat, and he got angry and annoyed. And he responded to Judy, "I'm still learning." Well, I'm still learning. I talked to Celina recently, and we both agreed that we have 50 temptations before noon, and she's good at 50. I have about 75. So it's about catching it, I think. I think that's the real tricky one. That's the first step of forgiveness, is to see it and catch it. So that's the hardest step, according to Ken Wapnick, is just noticing. And so I'm getting better at it, but I mentioned on that podcast that Tam mentioned that I've been studying since 1986, and that temptations are constant. And my goal is to not take the bait and to notice when it happens.
And you have chosen to live in New York. So that
yeah,
helps.
there's plenty of opportunities. Tam knows this. The four horsemen of the course, the first family of the course, were all New Yorkers. So here I am. And, I guess I'm sort of glad about that, because the point of the course is the course is not about love. The course is about removing the blocks to love's presence. Anger and fear and guilt are all the same in terms of that goal. So it's a minute by minute exercise for me. So it's fun.
And I do want to say, I have nothing against New York. I love New York. And one of the things that I've loved about it is the grit. There's grit in New York. And when I moved to California, it took me a while to accept someone in the morning giving coffee with such a cheery attitude. I had to completely change my being. I was upset that it was really hard to be depressed when everything was so beautiful around, and I had no justification for it. And it started to, begin my practice in a way. So, how about you, Jacqueline?
Well, I feel like there are a lot of ways to answer that question. Um, but starting with the list of bad things happening in the world, that's just something I pretty much ignore as much as possible. As any bad information coming at me, if it's on the internet, I won't look there. If it's negative conversations, I generally will turn towards people who tend to have positive conversations. And it makes it easier when something comes up to poke at a trigger to notice it instead of having a day just full of triggers. If you make your whole life generally peaceful, you'll notice the pain moments a little more and catch them more quickly. But it isn't always necessarily in the moment. Sometimes if it's a really big one, you do, or I still get like a little irritated, maybe even for a few days. Sometimes I'll forget the practice on one particular thing, and then it just builds up so much that I realize I have to go home and meditate it on it one night. And then I could stay cool in the heat of the moment tomorrow instead of now. And it just gets significantly easier with practice. So when I first started practicing, it might take me months to get over one really sticky thing and practice forgiveness on it every day. But now, because I've done that so much and most of life tends to be peaceful when you're not focusing on negative things and you actively turn towards things that you enjoy and that feel good and peaceful, it's easier and easier and easier to catch it more quickly. And it's just like any other skill. So it's not always necessarily right in the moment, but it is always building towards it being right in the moment, which is good enough, I think.
Yeah, I think that that's a fantastic way. And the choice, the choice in the company you keep, the choice in what you are listening to, when you really have the freedom to make that choice, it's questionable to me whether we always have the freedom to make that choice. I know someone brought up a question, and I totally want to hear what you have to say, Elizabeth, but it a question of like when we are in a situation with someone extremely abusive per se, and you have to take care of them. I want to double back to that to say we can't, it's a choice, but let's get back to that. I'm sorry, Elizabeth, go for it.
Yeah, so when I was asked to do this webinar, my first reaction was, I don't get all hot and bothered. What do they, this has, and then I got that great gift of watching how a million times before breakfast, I had already gotten hot and bothered. And I feel like this was already a gift just from that recognition. But the only thing I haven't heard said, I agree with everything I've heard, is one of the things I try to do is be grateful. The minute I feel myself go to ugh, or rolling of the eyes or impatience, is to see this is a gift for me right now. This is something about me that I haven't looked at. And so I take it as an opportunity, and I'm grateful. I try to be grateful for it. Thanks.
Well, Elizabeth, I'm going to call you out. And wasn't it you who felt like you shouldn't have been called a teacher?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
So I think that was something that bothered you right away.
100%. Yeah.
That Elizabeth didn't want to be called a teacher, and she is an extraordinary teacher, by the way. So I'm contradicting that. She didn't feel that she could be in the place of called a teacher, even though she's teaching. So right there, what was your practice? I know that you wrote to us and said, don't call me a teacher amidst this group of, people who are teachers, which I don't call myself one.
Hello.
What happened there? And how did you deal with that? because I know there were two things that happened. One was you wrote and said, please don't. And then there was another conversation that I heard about, which was, oh, should I have said that? So how did you deal with something like that? Because it's not always anger that gets us hot and bothered. It can be discomfort, or it can be humility or false humility.
False humility is good. Let me say, I'll be really honest, because I think this is one of the keys to triggers. It was comparing, seeing that Allan, seeing that Jacqueline, they were both listed as students. And I went, oh, am I allowed to say bad words? I would say insert bad word here.
Yes, you can.
They both are far more advanced than I am. And here I'm looking as the teacher. So there's that icky comparing, which I think is one of the keys to being triggered, is any time ego starts comparing this to that, and that's a great opportunity to get triggered.
And who were you in this to judge that you weren't as qualified to teach when you have been doing extraordinary work? I mean,
Well,
what's the comparison that you couldn't be that?
I think all of us we all teach every time we do anything and every time we say anything. So in that sense, I thought about it later and thought, if it were teacher with the small t, and you know, because we can't do anything except teach every minute that we're around other people, and probably we don't even have to be around other people. We're always teaching. So Tam, you've already made this uncomfortable.
I know, I know. I warned you. I warned you before we started that I just because I think there's a lot of subtle situations that bring this up. It's not just the pure anger or the pure discomfort. There's so many things that even seem nice that make us get into our ego of, I'm not this, I am that, I could be this. Then compared to them, I'm not. And I think we all, I certainly have felt that so many times, especially I still hardly ever say I am the president of the Foundation for Inner Peace. I say I serve as the president. And it's the same thing. It just, there's something about it that feels arrogant to me to say the other. And how do we stop and ask what is our truth? And I think the first step is wanting to, the choice, and looking at that choice of which would I rather feel, this discomfort? How do I stop and choose feeling something else, and ask for help if one can't just immediately switch? But I think it's a start. And I just think the whole scope of emotions and situations is worth looking at here.
This is actually the perfect question to start to dive deeper in this conversation, because right off the bat, we've had some good questions come in Q&A. And the first one is really sort of that. What are exercises I can practice to keep my cool in times of unexpected stressful situations? Can we go around and share something we might do?
I'd be happy to share. One of my stressful situations is I live way out in the northern suburbs of Chicago, and lately I've had to drive into the city a lot. And so at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I can find myself in absolute not moving traffic. And that is definitely a trigger to start getting hot, and especially there's a whole story of this should not be happening at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This should not be happening story is a really powerful one. And the other day when I was in that situation, I had this great thought that, to me, sometimes if you call out to Holy Spirit, help me here, I don't want to be this impatient, awful human being in the car. I heard this. I heard, just because you're sitting in a car doesn't mean you should be moving forward. And I loved it. It was like, I have water to drink. I have music to listen to. I can look at the clouds outside. And it changed my driving habits. There's nothing innate about being in a vehicle that says it should be moving forward. So that's a kind of example of what I do when I can feel myself. It's like, what story am I telling myself now, and can I change it? That's all.
I
Yeah.
think Celina, when I think about, when I saw the topic for the discussion, I was thinking, well, anger it shows up in lots of different ways. The Course says that there are only two emotions, love and fear. So I try to remember when I get snapped and I feel triggered that I'm afraid. And it's hard for people to say, I'm really afraid. I mean, it's hard for me to say. So it helps a lot if I come from that point of view, which is that I am really afraid. I speak to my ancestors and guides as well. And I say, I'm really afraid and I need help. I was talking to Tam about this, sorry, that Bill started with a kind of a complicated expression of appeal to spirit, and it ended at the last stages of his life with just one word: help. And for me, I'm always asking for help in remembering that my fire, and I have a lot of fire. It's hot this summer. Yeah, I have a lot of fire that I make inside of me, that it's always afraid, and it's terror. It's not just, I'm a little bit scared of that. I'm afraid, and Ken Wapnick says, you dig down deep enough, it's always about, I'm afraid to die or be annihilated or obliterated. And that's pretty intense, and it's hard to look at. So we don't want to. So that's the challenge, as far as I can see, is to allow ourselves to go deeper each time we have one of those trigger experiences. Each time I feel like I'm taking the bait to get in a fight or strike out at somebody or curse somebody out in my mind or annihilate them and murder them in my mind, which, as Celina and I agree, happens 50 times before lunch.
I agree with that one, if I can jump in now. But for me, a really important component of it has been practicing the belief, because as soon as I was able to really cement the belief that everything is all coming from my mind and it's all a reflection, then I would stop going into situations, reacting and expecting that a negative reaction would cause some positive change. Because if you have a really foundational belief that your mood is reflected outside of you, you really can't go into situations anymore, see something bad happen or feel something bad happening to you and think that something bad is happening to you. You're just going to believe that you need to change your mindset, and you'll take the appropriate steps to do that. And sometimes to do that, I just do spot cleaning meditations now. If I'm just going about the day and there's something annoying, I'll walk away, close my eyes for 2 minutes, remember that belief. Oh yeah, this is in my mind. Something about me is being reflected to me from the outside. And can I let that go and ask for peace on top of it? And that usually works pretty quickly, but it was a lot more challenging to do that while the belief was still shaky. So it was really a practice of practicing that belief into my reality.
Mhm. I love your expression of spot cleaning meditation. No, it's fantastic because the more you do the practice, the more one can see it as, oh, this spot right here. It's not the whole thing, but this spot I'm still stuck in. And the spot cleaning, I love that as a compulsive cleaner. It makes me happy to use that metaphor. Thank you. I'll also say, I want to bring up the traffic, because so many people share that the traffic can be a trigger. And for a bunch of different reasons, I have found that now when I'm in traffic or someone cuts me off or something happens like that, I thank them for saving my life. I thank the traffic for, I think I'm supposed to be there then, but I so trust in God's plan. I'm actually supposed to be here now. Maybe I should make a phone call I didn't think of making in the car. Maybe and really turn it around. Like when someone stands me up, my life is too busy for my liking. And I think, a surprise party. I get to have some time to myself. And so much of the way we react to things is based, if not everything, based on stories that we tell ourselves and narratives. And if the first helpful thing, it seems almost unanimously for people to do this practice, is when they get agitated, to find a way to stop for a moment, just to stop for a moment, take a breath. And that's the start. What happens next is choice, because when we're reactive, we're not in choice. We're not acting, we're reacting. And so to stop the reaction just for a moment and say, okay, which way do I want to go here? And have that opportunity to say, oh, I actually want to go a different way. There must be a better way here. Also, if it's hard to completely go straight to the deepest level of we are one, we can tell each other, I'm supposed to be happy right now. Good luck with that one. Ego really loves that one. All the things you should be feeling. Instead, I like to actually use narrative. I'm a storyteller and a writer, to flip the context around. So for instance, as I said, in traffic, oh, actually, this might have just, that person who just went in front of me might have just saved my life. Have no idea why or how, but they might have. And then there is a funny gratitude that comes up. And it's funny how we can actually trick ourselves with stories into gratitude, which is a fantastic place to do, to be, actually. So that's part of my way. And that is, how can I see this differently? It's not always just immediate, deeper course knowledge and practice. It's, my mother used to say, don't mix levels. And I try and play within the levels. Another way is to figure out how to bring humor into it as quickly as many of us have heard. If you don't know it, like one of the biggest statements in the course that's very impactful is, and God's son forgot to laugh, which is when we fell into the illusion being real. So if we can turn something around or something that's bothering us and make it funny, a lot of times we've done something as a kid that feels like the worst thing we ever did. And as an adult, we can look back and really laugh at it. Or like, yeah, we thought that was a big deal. No way. And do it with situations in the moment. It's tricky, but it really can happen. And I have found, for instance, with living with different people and roommates, if I'm agitated by something that they're doing, instead of going after and saying, that doesn't feel right, or, didn't your mother teach you to put that away, or whatever ridiculous judgment I'm having, to stop and figure out how to say it in a different way that brings in humor about it, not shame and not blame, but actual, I can't, I did this way once and boy, did it backfire, or whatever the situation would be. I mean, just recently, my partner's son started putting his private appointments in our group calendar. And instead of saying, well, could you stop doing this? And this is irritating and it's throwing my own calendar off. I would say, hey, maybe you want to put in fake things, like I'm going for a drug deal at 2 and we can all jump in, or, you just put in your therapy session. Do you want us to come with you? Is that why this is in here? And now it's become a place of humor because we're all feeding in ridiculous things in the calendar, and it's become really funny, and it's helped tremendously for my own tension about it. Like, that's disturbing my day. I think, what is that about? And one story in that was that he was a jeweler, and he had an appointment for an engagement ring. And I thought my partner was working with him to ask me to marry him. And so it was a very funny, convoluted situation that could have been frustrating or angry, but it ended up being humorous. And it is one way to breathe through a situation and lighten it up a little and then deal with it in a different way.
I want to maybe say something about the traffic situation because we all have been there, and kind of build on something that Jacqueline was saying and Tam was talking about. The whole idea of projection makes perception, no exceptions, is really powerful. And it's been helpful for me to, when I'm in that traffic situation, to take a look at what I'm projecting onto the traffic. And it's usually something where I come up with is there's some traffic jam, there's some jam in my thinking. I'm stuck in my thinking and my life. I think that Elizabeth said something about I'm not moving. These are really good clues for me when I'm stuck in traffic. And it is easy for me to feel angry about that unless I kind of do what Jacqueline was talking about, is kind of completely reframe that and say, what is really upsetting me about being stuck in traffic? And think about how many people are stuck in traffic. I mean, in the illusory world, a lot. And a lot of people are complaining about that. And if we maybe put a course perspective on that, it's spirits saying, take a look at this, because we're not moving in terms of course themes and ideas and help.
I love that. And it occurs to me the other place that I get upset, which is technology. Yeah. And I love what you're saying, Allan, because I can't quite make that jump. What I've noticed is that when I'm doing something with technology that I've done many times before, and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. And what I find is that I go directly into victim mode. So when I talked about gratitude for it, it's like I can feel my breath, I can feel the flushing of my face, and it's like, okay, I'm 7 years old now. And it becomes an opportunity to love the little 7-year-old, where in the past she was wrong and she was bad. And I think that's one of the reasons that, for me anyway, as I practice the course, we always remember we're bringing the darkness to the light, not the light to the darkness. So we got to bring all the victim stories, all the yucky, icky, dark stuff, and take it to Holy Spirit. So I try, when my computer won't work, or to do that. I don't always do it. I frequently don't do it, but it's a practice I try to do. So that's all.
And it can also bring up guilt about being late and not, oh, I'm late. I so promised I would be there at this time, and all of the things about that. Now, I also think there is a balance of accountability. If I am late all the time, what am I doing? If I'm late every so often, I turn it over saying, oh, this is God's time that there's traffic. But I also do need to take some responsibility if I'm going to feel guilt about being late, to change my own patterns in this so that I don't heap guilt on myself and not just go, oh, well, that's everyone else's problem because I'm taking their time. And I'm not thinking of that as well. So there is a fine line of where we become accountable. And I remember, Allan, you brought up Jerry Jampolsky, and I remember as a kid having a really hard time with him during his first practicing of the course, because I saw him do things that felt very inconsiderate towards other people. And when they would approach him, he'd say, well, that's just your projection, and that's your problem. And there was such and there is that tendency in course practice to go a little awry when you think you have the knowledge of what the course is saying, before you get deeper and deeper, or before you have a teacher, or here within yourself, to misinterpret some of what it's saying. And I don't think the course would say, yes, you can keep being late and say that's God's timing. There is a mixing of levels in that. And to really see, if I'm feeling guilty for being late, there's something else going on. I just wanted to bring that in, but for,
Yeah.
you know, if you're stuck in traffic and you've tried your hardest, it's God's right there. Alan, what's yours?
Yeah, you know, Diane Brooke Gusick tells a real friend of FIP, tells a wonderful story about being late and traffic. She was headed up to Roscoe to see Ken Wapnick in a weekend conference or whatever, and her car broke down, or she had car problems on the highway. And she called AAA and she got it fixed up, and she went to Roscoe, and she was mortified that she was late. I hope I'm telling this story correctly if Diane's listening, but more or less, she was very apologetic. And when they took a break, she went up to Ken and said how sorry she was and how embarrassed she was. And he said in his inimitable way, Diane, she stopped, and she said, yes. He said, who'd you meet? It's so beautiful. Basically, she revealed that she had this incredible connection with the guy from AAA who came to fix her car, and it was never about the car breaking down. It's so good. I mean, it's kind of what Elizabeth was saying earlier, is like, well, maybe I'm supposed to be right here, right now, connecting with a little kid who's looking out the window of their car, or a dog, or whatever. But I love that story from Diane, because it just takes the whole embarrassment or misery of traffic and lateness, out of the picture. It reframes it, and I think that's one of the beautiful gifts of the course.
Oh, that's really beautiful. I love that story. And I love what Tam was sharing. A lot of people were chiming in on the chat when you were sharing the first part of your statement about traffic and so forth. But then you were getting into, Tam, a little bit deeper about this mixing of levels, which brings me to another question that was asked by one of our viewers, Anita. So, and this starting to go a little bit deeper now. Is it expected to live a normal life with goals while doing this program, practicing the forgiveness, as the Course teaches us, when the ultimate goal is to leave this illusion life and go home to God's kingdom? Can we do a bit more of a deep dive into that? Because we have it here in the Q&A. We also had a lot of people write in.
That was a big part of my spiritual awakening process for me, was the goals, and recognizing how much further and bigger my goals were than I'd allowed myself to really daydream about. And when aligning with what it felt like my higher self was emotionally telling me I wanted, I had to step into the fact that my goals were completely different and very powerful to me. And I do have some of those goals now, but they're a lot less specific. They're kind of vague. I would love to be a spiritual teacher. I would love to play guitar in a band or sing in a band, but however it gets there doesn't really matter. And it's kind of less of an attachment and more of just the feeling of the dream feels so good that I know it's a calling in that direction for now. But I have had callings even in the last few years that have changed. And that doesn't mean that it's not okay to have a goal, or goals are false or anything like that. But for me, the biggest teachers in practicing A Course in Miracles and forgiveness, non-attachment, non-judgment, have been whatever my deepest desires, my biggest loves are. Those are the things that I can practice feeling love towards most easily. And it's kind of like the guiding light going in the right direction. So the goals can change, but as long as they're genuine in my heart, they're all still guiding me towards the same ultimate goal of being one with everything. So goals are great. I think personally, they've really helped me in practicing.
Thank you for that. The thing that stood out about that question to me, and I might need you to reread a little bit of it, is
Sure.
it begins with, is it expected? Is that true?
Yeah. Well, let's read it how the questioner writes it.
Please.
Is it expected to live a normal life with goals while doing this program when the ultimate goal is to leave this illusion life and go home to God's kingdom?
I don't think there is a baseline expectation from Course in Miracles about what we do in this world of illusion. It is except to remove the blocks of, to our awareness of love's presence. And it also says, and I'm talking levels again, I mean, let's say we've woken up from this dream. It doesn't immediately just go away. It's you then enter the happy dream where we're in this world of illusion. And there's a non-attachment to it. The attitude about it is very different. It doesn't have to just disappear. So this world is being used by us in order to learn these lessons of how to see what the projections are, what the ego is. Even the ego doesn't disappear. You don't necessarily, it's like your sense of smell doesn't disappear. It's how our relationship is with it and who we attach to knowing who we are versus these senses, these external voices that then we identify with. Or external situations that we say, oh, that's my story. That's who I've been. And there is a process. So you don't have to skip straight to, okay, we are one. I shouldn't have any goals. I shouldn't do anything. And I shouldn't have any desires. Some of my greatest desires actually brought me to another level of understanding. And if I'm, desiring something that's healthy for myself, that's not a bad thing. I desired to go to Nepal right after college, and I had one of the biggest awakenings of my life there. Oh, that was a desire. Better not do it and sit here because we really need to get to once. And that would be my best answer to that.
Don't you think it's not so much about the goals or the desires, but how we react if we get a no? And so that's where I guess the course comes in. If I'm getting a no where a goal is concerned or a desire is concerned, then do I recognize that one of my favorite quotes, that everything that happens past, present, and to come is gently planned by one whose only purpose is my good. There are just a few that I have memorized, but that one, it's such a gift when you're getting a no. And I think all of us recognize that those no's are always yes in a different way, right?
Yeah, that part which knows better. And I used the word healthy desire. Healthy desire meant you get a yes. like there's this desire, yes. That's okay. But it's always the greatest tool, I think, is the asking inside and asking for inner guidance. And a lot of people have trouble with that beginning premise that there is a voice inside you can connect with, or a feeling or a thought inside that is different than the egoic thought that you can ask to have a conversation. And the conversation may not be in words. The conversation may be in images, or as I say, or a dream, or whatever that will bring you to a deeper understanding and connection. But it's worth listening inside. It's worth asking for help and starting to listen and not being so identified with the voice that we're used to thinking was us. And I would completely agree that if there is a goal or a desire, in Jacqueline's case, it brought her closer to where she needed to be next. And in some other people's, it brings them further. And the knowing the difference is a good step.
Right.
Wow, a lot of things went through my mind as each of you were talking, but I guess the course is not about doing anything. It's about undoing everything. And it's the truth is 180 degrees from what we're looking at. And I think the course also says it's not about changing the world, it's about changing the way we look at the world. So yeah, one of the things that I talk about, and Tam and Celina know this, is that because of the novel I wrote, the spiritual adventure novel, is that this process might be fun. And I talk about it, the mystic talks about it being a treasure hunt. And as Tam was saying, the guidance can come in so many ways, and I love it. I mean, in the book, it talks a lot about synchronicity and coincidence. Tam has a natural gift with intuition, but strengthening our intuition and how to go about doing that. And then in terms of what we do in the world is, to Tam's point, we turn it over to spirit and listen for what direction spirit has in mind, because I have no idea what I should be doing in my life. No idea. And to think I do is the arrogance or spiritual bypass that I've been doing for most of my life. Tam's mother used to say that she took every detour possible and does all the time in order not to do this. We don't want to do this. Ken Wapnick says no one wants to do this course, actually. But I've taken all the detours. And so, yeah, just in the last few years, after 30 plus years of studying, do I realize, man, I do not want to control this anymore. I have failed every time when I've tried to do it on my own. It doesn't work. I'll keep doing it, I'm sure, because it's scary to give up control, but it's the only way. And I'm working at it.
Just want to add in that I've heard so much in the past several years about people manifesting. I manifested this and I manifested, and you can get in tune and have this power of manifesting, which is also in kind of alignment with a will. And I have found the joke of God in the details, because I could manifest something and then the little details that I forgot. The boyfriend that I wanted to be ABC, and then suddenly he was ABC, but everything was off and didn't work for me. Finally, the prayer has really shifted to, instead of, could you give me this? Could you give me that? It's just keep giving me what's best for me. I don't know what's best for me. My mind certainly doesn't know what's best for me. Bring it on. Bring it on. And then there is that trust. As we said, even in traffic, this seems to be what's best for me right now. And how can I move through also to see all of it as an illusion, to undo, as you were saying, to what can be undone here, my perception and reactions to it.
Oh, good.
Celina, can we get back to that question about?
I know. I was just going there. I think I know what you're thinking of. It's relationships.
Caregiving one.
Caregiving one. Yeah. I was just getting ready to go there, Tam.
Thank you.
We have people writing in who on Q&A, going a little bit deeper here, talking about difficulty in relationships. We had most of our questions coming up about that, I would say. But here is one.
It's number 4. I think.
Yeah, under relationships here. But I'm going to read it. Here it is.
Abusive care.
Yeah, especially in a caregiving situation. One's self-care and healthy boundaries are highly compromised. The result is too much pressure, burnout that brings out a reactive fury. Transgressing the ACIM spirit seems inevitable. And empathy flies out the window. What perspective can be most helpful since my own well-being is at stake? Very good question.
Very good. I'm jumping in because I was excited about this one, and that wasn't the one I was talking about, but it's another one that
Oh, there's another one about
dovetails.
abusive care,
I,
about
I'm
abusive
a
caregivers.
20 years
Yeah.
ACIM student, newly caretaking, abusive, oppositional early dementia partner, a struggle with choosing and getting my responses. And it struck a chord in me because I would go back to New York towards the end of every month for almost a week to help caregive for my father. And my mother had three husbands. The first husband was my biological father. The next was Bob Sketch. The next was Bill Whitson. And this was my biological father, who could be extremely abusive and really horrible. And people would ask me, why? Why are you going back? Why not just leave him alone? And my answer was because I had a deep guidance. First of all, guidance told me to go back. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't anything but guidance saying, I need to complete this with this man so that I am free when he's gone. And I could do it by not visiting him, but I was told to visit him. And he would get so abusive to me. And we're in New York City apartment where he always kept the windows closed and you have heat and air conditioning and you don't have soot in the apartment. Very OCD man. And what would happen would be he would be so abusive to me and I would feel so horrible that I would open the window in whatever room we were in. And this is very dramatic, but I would literally open the window so that I would know if he said something so horrendous to me about me, which he did often, I could just walk out the window 16 floors up right in front of him. And I could do that. So I had an exit. And because I wasn't doing that, I knew it was my choice to stay and do the work. And so for me, just see, and he'd say, why is the window open in every room we go in? And I would say something about allergies or, whatever I had to say to make sure that window stayed open. But it was my almost like talisman who remind me that I was there by choice. And I was there by choice to do the work that I was guided to do. Now, if my father was physically beating me, his abuse was very verbal. I think I would have heard do not go. I think I would have heard this is not my path, but I can't tell you because I know there are people who've been in abusive relationships who really feel they still need to be there for whatever reason. And I'm never going to judge someone else's guidance, but to make sure that it is guidance. So I just wanted to add that they're sometimes a choice. And it seems like, as I was saying, Jacqueline is so good. Okay, I don't want to be around the news or around people who are going to bring me down in that way. And in this situation, I needed to be. It was part of my life path, and it was one of the more rewarding things I've ever done in my life. And the healing that happened between my father and me was off the charts, extraordinary, that I feel was so much more powerful because he was alive than doing it without him in a room or doing it, after he passed. So I would say be kind to yourself in these situations. Really make sure your guidance is telling you to be there. And if it's not, get the hell out and see how you can listen. But do just, I know the guilt incurred by being with an abusive partner who has dementia, and it's a hard path. Find out how to take, if you feel you must stay in that relationship and caregive, really make sure that you are also caregiving to yourself. And the balance is a healthy balance, and that you are not just giving it up for that person, because there have been studies that have shown that caregivers for especially Alzheimer's patients, I believe, and others with dementia, actually happen to die in a higher rate than the person that has the dementia. So it's an interesting statistic, and I don't know if it's still true, but it was when I checked 10 years ago, to how does one navigate this, and doing a course of practice where you're not taking the strain in, or the depth of someone's abusive words, is an extreme practice, as extreme as using the course itself to go the straight path up the mountain. It's hard, and make sure you get support, but really back end support to be able to do it and to keep doing the practice inside, saying, I know that this is not real. I know that this is not real. And that's all I can say of what I've done in the difficult situation.
I was up in Roscoe for a workshop with Ken. I'm sorry to keep referring to these people, but they're just more articulate and better teachers than I am. But Ken told a great story about a person who had this same conflict about exhaustion from caretaking. This was during the AIDS years, a long time ago, but it still is just as pertinent today. And this person was talking about how unhappy she was, how exhausted she was, how burnt out she was. And Ken said, so who is doing more good for the world? The nurse who shows up at the AIDS ward or whatever and is bitter about it and resentful and exhausted and getting sick herself or himself, or the baseball player who is showing up every day at the stadium, talking to children, signing autographs, handing out baseballs, and just bringing a lot of joy. Now, I know that's an easy story to tell, and it sounds good. And I was also in a caretaking role for my dad for a long time, for a few years, and with my mom, for my mom a bit with my sisters. But it is it's scary, it's upsetting, and it's a really challenging thing to do. But there's nothing in the course says about sticking around for a situation that's abusive or dangerous. Nothing. You get out if you're in trouble or getting sick, or you find help. And I love what Tam said. I mean, this is always about bringing it to spirit in whatever way you know how to do, and getting guidance on every situation, because we have no idea what's best. Being good by showing up for our loved ones or people who are sick. I don't know what good is. I don't know what bad is. So we can ask. And I know Tam we've talked about this a lot. She has a direct line, but I have to work at it a lot. So it's getting easier, but it only took me 38 years or something.
A blip.
Exactly.
No.
I haven't had any abusive situation to this extent, so it feels a little strange to answer this. But I have had situations where I have to see the same person every single day, and just there's one particular energy that this person has that I just can't stand being around you. Seeing your face makes me angry. I don't like this. This is miserable. And for the easier ones, maybe one little session of asking for peace will do it. But there have been a few where it's been over the course of years where I have to go home and do the work on it. And every time it gets a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. And the interactions with that person just change a tiny little bit. And noticing those and being grateful to see the work you've done reflected back even a smidgen better, that has kept me going on those. And I've turned relationships around completely that were relationships that this seems like it's here to stay, so I better do the work on this one. And just sticking to that ultimately turns some of those from this is awful to this is wonderful, like genuine total 180 degrees slowly over time. I definitely personally would say get out of an abusive situation, but if it is your choice to stay in one because you feel like you're called to, if you're choosing to do that, then I would make sure to do the inner work so that you can be at peace with it. And it might not be overnight, but like even little increments in the positive direction is really good.
I think that that's invaluable. The measuring that we get to do. Okay, is this working? And if you don't see any difference in the time it takes to forgive and the time it takes to see it a little bit differently, and as you say, it can be the tiniest increment, then something isn't, in alignment, because it does work. It really does work.
Yeah, I think this is really helpful. Just reviewing some of these submissions about different relationships and boundaries and different types of relationship issues, not only the caregiving, but there's a lot of different questions have come in. So this is helpful for a lot of people.
Celina, can I just add for 1 second?
Oh yeah, go.
The some of the questions I've heard over time in this is, it goes back to what I was saying before about context. People talk about karma. Well, maybe that person I was horrible to in a past life, so I've got to deal with this now. Or maybe, and it that's a whole webinar into itself that we're thinking of doing on the perception of karma. But the context of it can indeed help if you are called to be in a difficult relationship. That thought of, oh, I wonder what I did to this person for them to be doing this now. Or yeah, again, substituting humor, bringing humor in of, oh, maybe that person did blah, blah, blah. Before, and look at it now. And I had a situation with my brother who was quite brilliant, really, really brilliant, and I came behind him as the idiot. And everything he does has to do with the brain, and he's a phenomenal neuroscientist on the top of his career, and on and on. And someone gave me a reading, and she did past life readings, which I was really not very interested in, because I felt like I've got enough to deal with this life. But she didn't know me at all, and it was a gift from someone, so I went. And one of the things she said was, oh, in a past life you lived in Eastern Europe or whatever, and you were the firstborn in a family where everything was going to you. And you had a brother who was younger, who was the village idiot. People made fun of him all the time. And your brother came this life, and he was going to be the firstborn, and he was going to get everything first. And everything for him is about the brain, because he was the village idiot. Now, whether this story is true or not true doesn't really matter, but it lightened it all up. It lightened the whole story up. And the first conversation I had with my brother after this was not to tell him this, because he doesn't believe in any of that. But he was saying he was going skiing. And I said, what are you going skiing? Who are you going skiing with? Oh, it's brain ski week. And it just got me laughing so hard, where in the past it was, oh, he's going on a brain ski week. And it was like, of course you are. You're going to brain ski week. You were once a village idiot. Like, this makes so much sense. So again, how we look at something, how can we insert a different perspective in a situation when something is bothering us? And it never bothered me again how smart my brother was. I mean, it just took it away. And it was a real opportunity for a different change in perception, from fear that I was less than him to, oh, look what he's doing. He might have had a really hard time another time. And how can I help this? And, again, it's all part within the practice. You can go straight to, this is not real. What is the story? All of that goes straight there. If you can get the answer right then and there, as far as get the peace, that's what I call the answer. Hallelujah. If you can't, there are little tricks of it.
That's great, Tam. People are loving what you have to say. They're just asking you to come a little bit closer to the mic. You might have some background stuff going on there.
Yeah, I have seagulls above me being very loud, and a computer that has a fan that goes on.
Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, can we, there was a few things that I might try to combine here because you mentioned, what's it all for? We know that there's this lesson in the course, workbook lesson 25. I don't know what anything is for. And then there are a lot of people that are asking a lot of good questions related to worldly application. There's a lot of people who even wrote in and said, in my 60 years of living, I've come to appreciate that certain eruption, yet controlled, is effective and can be transformative. So, is anger helpful? How do I maintain a balance? I mean, we're talking about a difference of levels here. I don't know if anybody would like to go into that a little bit more deeply.
Sure, I can start with that one. I like to go by the emotional spectrum model. I'm not sure if there's another word for that, but it's been described in many books and things. But there's shame and guilt on the lowest end, and anger's a little higher up, and then all the way on the other end is love, peace, and joy. So if you're doing anything to move up the spectrum, it's positive and it's enlightening, and that's going towards forgiveness. So if you're in a horrible feeling of guilt or shame or fear or something painful and you're feeling angry after that, you've actually moved in a positive direction. So a lot of people feel like anger is something they shouldn't have and they should feel guilty about, when actually, if they're going this way, it's a really big step. And then I, of course, still get angry sometimes. That doesn't stop happening altogether. But this did happen just the other day with someone I'm close to. We'd been having a lot of struggle communicating, just we both trying our best from our hearts to communicate clearly, but it wasn't working well. And so we started nagging a little bit, and just I was kind of curious because I don't fight and I don't get that jabby sort of anger. And I was just wondering, well, what would happen if I just lashed out at him? And so we had a little lash out, and I sort of just wanted to see what would happen because that was a new experience. So there's not really a wrong choice. If it's something you want to try, you'll grow in wisdom either way, and then you'll do it again or you won't do it again based on how it felt. But you'll learn from it, and it's not that big of a deal to be angry sometimes. And it just kind of falls away for the most part after a while, but you're allowed to be angry. And you're just allowed to get messy sometimes, but that the messiness will, like, right on the other side of that is the wisdom that comes from, oh, that actually kind of sucked. I shouldn't have lashed out, or that helped, or whatever happens might be different for everyone.
Well, we can remember that Jesus got angry at the moneylenders. There can be purpose to every single emotion that we are having, as long as we're in alignment.
Yep.
I think we're going to get angry, and the course is, I mean, that is not the problem. The problem is not choosing again. So I don't think there's any way out of the anger part, because it reflects how, I do believe it reflects how frightened we are. So we have an opportunity each time. Ken Wapnick, sorry about this, but Ken would always say that we're don't dwell on it, and move on and choose again. And I think that expressing anger, probably for me anyway, always makes me feel guilty in the end. So it's not about bypassing it, it's just about, oh man, that does not feel good in any circumstance. And again, help me, help. I took the bait again. Help, 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 help. And that's a practice I hope to continue for the rest of my life.
Celina, you're on mute, Penny.
So Laura, our Chief Development Officer, and I were speaking recently, and she gets a lot of questions from students who are feeling the burn of the practice, and they feel like they're doing the practice of A Course in Miracles, but then it's continual, like, I'm not a good course student. Why am I not getting this? As we're getting close to time here, we got quite a few questions under this topic. What might you offer these students where it's like continued practice, practice? Any advice? What suggestions would you give them? Discussing anything that might be common obstacles for
And
you or how you've learned to
Yeah, I
overcome them.
know. I could
please
hear you,
tell.
Allan. I could hear you. My mother practiced from the moment the course hit her hands, and she called our meditation group and our course practice group the slow learners group. That's what you were thinking, right, Allan? Yeah, that's it. Because it took her so long to get it, and she spent a lot of time really, really practicing the course, if not every moment, to tell you the truth. And towards the end of her life, she was 90, and about a couple of months before she passed, she was very concerned. I said, "What's going on?" She said, "I'm not where I thought I would be, even as the slow learner. I'm not completely awakened in the state that I thought I'd be at this time, and I think I failed." And I just held her and said, "You're not gone yet." And, she was listening to the course at night instead of her usual audio books. And on her last day, she looked at me and she basically said, it's a longer story, but she got it. She felt that she got it that last day. So you never know. You never know what your time is. And be patient with yourself, because it's a big undoing. It's rare that someone gets it in a second. And I can't say it never happens, because people will tell you stories of awakening. What I have found with some people who've told me stories of awakening is that they go out, they start teaching, and they don't have the tools to maintain it. And the ego just creeps back in. So it's an almost unconscious awakening for a moment. Oh, we're all one. I get it. And maybe they got it from a drug. Maybe they got it, just instantly from, I can't tell you a million stories in all of these people here. But the course gives you the tools to get there and to maintain with the wisdom of who we are and who we're not. So be kind to yourself. That's the biggest thing. It is a hard path, or it certainly can be. And keep knowing that we are just in a blip of time. The whole purpose of time is to get to do this work. So it's okay. It's okay. Don't be so harsh on yourself and what your level is. Sorry, Allan. Yes.
No, I just want to say there, your mother also said something, if I could be so presumptuous as quote your mother in front of you.
Why not?
In their Miracle Voices podcast, she was talking about how long it was taking her, and she called the course the Olympics of the mind. And we have the Olympics going on right now. And people who want to be in the Olympics train and train and train. It does not happen by any means overnight. They dedicated their whole lives to it and most hours of their day. And I haven't done that with the course in my life. It's Ken Wapnick used to say, I've often say this, he said, if you're not throwing the blue book against the wall a couple times a month, you're probably not doing it right. It's not a course for the faint of heart, as Tam was saying. And so this is the Olympics of mind training. This is training of the mind. And it takes a long time. At least it has for me. No revelation for me. Damn.
The other thing that I would add to this is it's a judgment, right? And the basic core of A Course in Miracles is to stop the damn judging. So it's kind of an ego trip to say, oh, I'm a bad student. Oh, I'm not getting, it's just another game the ego plays. And I think it doesn't deserve to be given the time of day.
I want to say two things. it's really helpful. It was really helpful for me to recognize where my beliefs were most off and choose what I wanted to believe as foundation. And then it seems like it's very easy to just start reading spiritual books, whether it's Course in Miracles or something else, or just consume endless YouTube videos and try and do work endlessly. And that kind of at some point starts turning you in the wrong direction of thinking you're not good enough and you have to keep improving, when the whole point is you're already good enough. So if you're feeling really stuck, or when I was feeling really stuck, it's kind of good to just shut everything, take like a spiritual vacation where you don't take in any new spiritual material and just try and have fun, because the point of all the other stuff, of all the spiritual stuff, is so that you can have more fun and be more loving and joyful. So if you like, there's people in other countries who have never heard of A Course in Miracles, and people in this country who are just out playing all day and they're doing just fine because they're always connected, because they're having fun. So if it's just too much at some point, shut it and go do anything you like. Hang out with a friend, or go for a walk in the park, or play a game.
Great, great suggestion. Love that.
Awesome.
Laugh.
Yep.
Mhm.
Well, so here we are, just a few minutes to go. Just want to give time, go around for any last comments or anything our panelists would like to share. We wanted to give time for our panelists to share a little bit about their work, and then maybe time for a meditation.
Allan, do you want to say a book, website?
Well, I wrote a book called The Mystic and the Muse, MEWS. The Muse is a few blocks away. It's the Washington Muse. And it's about a mystic who is super aware, who shows up after 2,600 years to finish what he started, and to basically show the world is ready for a saving idea after the pandemic, and he's here to show the world another way, which is the story of the Course. And I think it's uplifting. I think it's hopeful. I think it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I mean, it took me 10 years to write, to the point of like, I was trying to understand how to put the Course ideas into the words of characters. It took me a long time, but I think it's a fun read, and particularly think that Course students will enjoy it, because it is really inspired by the Course, and there's Course language embedded in the dialogue, and it's a little treat for Course students, I think.
Thank
So cool. And Deborah put a link on our chat. So thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Deborah.
you,
It
Jacqueline.
is a fun read. I agree. I've been enjoying it.
Thank you.
Let's see. I am currently working on creating a course. So I'm not sure what the title is going to be yet, but it's something to do with how to get into alignment with your higher self through your own desires, and understanding your own emotions very thoroughly, and how to communicate with the universe through your own emotions. And I'm actually looking for people to do interviews with, just to get your perspective on it and make sure I build a course to what people need. So I'm actually going to put a link on the homepage of my website, which is jacquelineboss.com. And I'll do that tonight, and set a little calendar link. So if anyone would be interested in doing like a 30-minute Zoom chat, so I can get your perspective and your own goals and challenges on your spiritual path, I would love to talk to you.
And Elizabeth.
Yeah, the only part of my spiritual practice I didn't mention anywhere is Byron Katie. I've been to the school, and if you're really stuck in a forgiveness story, I'm happy to facilitate a workshop, and it's a wonderful way to practice A Course in Miracles in a very practical way. So yeah, sometimes asking for Holy Spirit again and again, you need an extra little jump start, and Byron Katie's work really does wonders. Yeah, that's all.
And I will say, I just kind of moved to say, if you do have a forgiveness story and you haven't gone on Miracle Voices, please do. Please write in, go to Miracle Voices on podcast, and have Celina will put in how you get there.
Yes, yes, we will.
Computer illiterate. But anyway, if you have a beautiful forgiveness story, share it with everyone. Matt McCabe is my co-host, and there's some phenomenal stories. They all are pretty much, and it's really fun to have people come and join. So don't think that, you know, if you're afraid of public speaking, you're not speaking in the public. You're just talking to Matt and me, and it's a really good time we have. So please feel free to join us. I'm also going to say something that's at the end here, somewhat controversial, but if you have been motivated to make any type of career with the course, and it does bring you wealth in all sorts of ways, please remember to give back to the Foundation for Inner Peace that actually the course to you, because we are a nonprofit that really do need funds to keep going and keep bringing webinars and podcasts and everything else that we do, audiobooks and app and everything else, to make it possible for everyone to keep spreading the word and touching other people. So if you found that you have been touched and you have any extra to be able to give back, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you for that.
So good. Thank you all for sharing, and thank you for those asks, Tam. Our team are putting links in the chat, so make sure you check it out. With just a few minutes to go, something that we have done in the last 2 to 3 months is we've had some time to collectively share in a quiet space at the end of our webinars. We sometimes do this at the end of our meetings at the foundation, and people have appreciated it. But I would like to take a few minutes to have, I'm going to read just a little something from the course going out, and then we will sit in meditation, all of us, for 2 to 3 minutes, and then I will take us home with the outro. If that sounds good with everybody? Is that okay? Great.
Yeah, and bring your fears, your anger, your concerns, anything to this meditation that 1,000 people have signed up for this. We can all together let go and support each other in that state of love, of our true presence.
Thank you.
So let's do it collectively.
Yes. Thank you. And I'll read first, and then we will get quiet. This is something that came to me today earlier in a meeting from lesson 134 in the course. And the lesson for that day is, let me practice, let me perceive forgiveness as it is. And here's just a line from that workbook lesson that will take us into meditation. Today, we practice true forgiveness, that the time of joining be no more delayed, for we would meet with our reality in freedom and in peace. Our practicing becomes the footsteps, lighting up the way for all our brothers who will follow us to the reality we share with them. That this may be accomplished, let us give time today and spend it with a guide who understands the meaning of forgiveness and was sent to us to teach it. And so let us ask of him, let me perceive forgiveness as it is. Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. We want to thank our guests and our attendees for joining us, as well as our team, Foundation for Inner Peace, staff, and volunteers. And we, of course, want to give our appreciation to all those who donate to the Let's Discuss webinar series. It's your donations that keep these events coming, so we thank you for them. Before we go, we have just a few announcements. If you are here with us live or are watching this as a direct replay, keep an eye on the group chat and we'll post some of the information there. For those who may not know it yet, the ACIM audio app is now here and available today for iPhone. You can experience A Course in Miracles like never before and listen to the course at your own pace, adding read along, background music, comprehension breaks, meditating to course passages. We even have a personal recording feature and much more with this app. And soon, I mentioned it is on iPhone, but soon the app will be on the Android phone. So we'll be making announcements in the coming weeks. So Apple users, you can try it free for now. And also Android users, stay in the know for when this app is a go. We're going to put a link in the chat. It is acim.org/audio app. You'll want to stay tuned for August because we're going to hold our next event. And this year for August, it will be an ACIM summer movie meetup. We're doing something a little different this time. We'll be featuring through Zoom our documentary, The Story of A Course in Miracles, on Thursday, August 22nd. Many here, I'm sure, may have seen the movie. It was produced many years ago by filmmaker Bridget Winter, but this is a time that we'll be reflecting on the story of how the course came to be. And this documentary features firsthand accounts by our scribes and our founders. The second part of the documentary, which will be in the same event, are some of the early course students sharing how the course has impacted their lives. And it's very moving. And we want to have this movie time meetup, this movie night with you all. So Spanish translation will be available as well. So we hope you can join us. Again, if you subscribe to our foundation announcements and newsletters, you will receive information for August very soon. And additionally, you can always check out our website event page at acim.org/events. So we hope you can join us next month. Before we go, we've created a short survey that will display on your browser when the session ends. So please give us your feedback for today's session. We look at it and we really thank you. And so with love and gratitude, thank you for being here. And we look forward to having you again soon. So be well and take care and stay cool.